Hey, in this video, I'm going to talk about why, if it fits your macros, inflexible dieting long-term is a moronic approach. And it's going to get controversial, but why a calorie should not only be viewed as a calorie. Now, we're getting deep into controversial territory, so I already see the dislikes coming, but hold off on your dislikes and at least let me explain what I'm going to talk about in this video. So stick around for the rest of this video and we're going to go into these topics. What's up everyone, Eric Bowling here. In today's video, we're going to go into very controversial territory. And I call it controversial because anytime we have things that have research backing it and or we have a cult following around something, it's bound to piss some people off. So like I said, before you hit that dislike button, at least hear me out what I'm about to say. So first of all, what I would like to say is that if it fits your macros or flexible dieting, whichever you call it nowadays, long-term, it's a moronic approach. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't work. In fact, here's a transformation that I did in just 12 weeks using flexible dieting. And I went from somewhere around 20% all the way down to around 5% body fat in 12 weeks using flexible dieting. So once again, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying it's moronic long term. And I will explain why, so just hold off a second, continue to hear me out, and let me start to build up this topic. When I did that transformation, I was eating what we would consider the shittiest nutrient quality food ever. Okay, I was eating tilapia a lot as a protein source. Not even organic. This was farm raised, like straight out of China tilapia, okay, because it was cheap. I was also eating a lot of junk foods, okay, so what we would consider junk foods. I know a lot of people in flexible dieting don't like using clean foods or junk foods, but that food is nothing more than just calories and macros, and if you can fit it in, it's in context, it's whatever the goal is. But what the normal general public would consider junk foods, that's what I was eating, okay? I was finding ways to implement hot Cheetos, I was finding ways to implement Chipotle into my diet, and I got shredded. So if it worked for me, and although that was a transformation I did about 5 years ago, I obviously have a lot more muscle mass now than I did back then, but nevertheless, a lot of people would die to have a transformation like that in as little as 12 weeks. Now, if I got such great results using a flexible dieting approach, why do I call it moronic? And before we get into that topic, if I understand the science that says that as long as calories are matched and as long as protein is matched, that it doesn't matter what diet you do, if I understand that and if I agree with that, why then would I say that a calorie is not always a calorie or food is not just calories? So now let's go into this because this is controversial territory, and I'm hoping that a lot of people will engage in comments in this topic because I think it's something that's not addressed very often. First of all, what I would say is even though I got shredded using flexible dieting, I felt like shit. And I've dealt with a lot of people, a lot of clients over the years who use or who came from a flexible dieting camp, and they were using that approach, but they had things like chronic inflammation in the body, their hormones were completely jacked up, things like thyroid was not working, their thyroid wasn't working like it should have, and we were having different types of problems like chronic inflammation in the body that was causing their joints to fire up, their lower back was hurting, they were having sciatic nerve pain. There was a lot of issues going on. They had very poor sleep. They couldn't get quality sleep. So even though they were getting their 7 to 8 hours of sleep, quality of sleep was terrible. Although they were seeing results, there was a lot of health implications, and this was the same thing for me. And this is why we're gonna talk about this, because if you just look at food as just calories or just macros, you're missing the bigger picture in all this. Food makes you feel a specific way. There's a lot of research coming out that shows that certain foods affect the gut microbiome. Now, the gut microbiome is a huge topic that I'm not going to get too deep into, but basically what we're finding out is that The bacteria in your body makes you feel a certain way. We're also finding out that certain foods have a different impact on your neurotransmitters in your brain. So certain foods are precursors to things like dopamine. Certain foods raise your levels of serotonin. And depending on what foods you eat, this can have a drastic effect on things like your motivation, your drive, your energy levels, how tired you're feeling throughout the day, etc. Knowing all of this, why would you eat shit food? So look, so if you don't care how you feel, or let's say you're a bodybuilder and all you care about is body composition, and you're okay with eating tilapia and rice cakes all day long, fine. Flexible dieting is a great approach for you. I think it's moronic. That's my opinion, because I've dealt with a lot of people. And here's the truth. Not everyone out there is a competitive bodybuilder. So a lot of these guys out there who are big names, who advocate if it fits your macros, or who advocate flexible dieting, you have to understand that the majority of the clients they work with, guess what? They're competitive bodybuilders. They want to step on stage with sub 5% body fat, hopefully. In that context, if it fits your macros and flexible dieting, I think it's a great approach, because once you get to a certain level of body fat, if you're not being so particular with tracking the minute things, like just dropping carbs down a little bit more, or changing your fats, or increasing your protein, then you're probably not going to get to sub 10% body fat levels. Okay, so that's a different topic, and those are not the people I'm addressing. The problem is the general public who see bodybuilders and who see these people who do take a flexible dieting approach. Why would you preach to someone who is obese or who has a problem consuming mass amounts of sugar that it's okay for them to keep those foods in as long as they're tracking them? We want to break those bad habits on people, and we want to make those people feel better. I'm sure you want to feel better. You have to understand that foods are not just calories, foods are not just macros. Foods affect how you feel. One of the biggest things that people want when they come to me, on their top 3 list, there's gonna be, I want to feel good. I want to have more energy. I don't always want to feel the way I do, right? At the midpoint of the day, I don't want my energy to come crashing down. Not everyone out there is looking to get to sub 10% body fat levels. Unless you're an athlete, unless you're looking to step on stage, that's probably not a goal for you. So let's go into the topic of calories. Yes, on a thermic level, if we're only talking about the law of thermodynamics, you have to understand calories are a unit of measurement, okay? It's energy. So a calorie, yes, technically is a calorie, right? We're talking about units of measurement. But in the context of food, and the calories that come from food, it's not the same thing. If you had 2 people, one was eating 1,500 calories, and let's say their BMR is 2,000 calories, and they're eating 1,500 calories. Okay, so they're 500 calories less, they're in a caloric deficit. However, they are eating higher protein, they're monitoring their carbs, and they're having the right amount of fats. And it's all coming from natural whole foods, 1,500 calories. And then you have someone else who is eating the same thing. Their BMR is 2,000, they have 1,500 calories that they're eating, and they're only getting those calories from Twinkies, and from hot Cheetos, and from In-N-Out, and from cake. If we look into it, who do you think is gonna have the better body composition at the end? I will agree, the person who's eating the junk food may have weight loss. But many people are not looking for weight loss. People are looking for body composition changes, right? So if you're dieting down, ideally you wanna maintain muscle mass. Ideally, you wanna lose the fat. So that's why a calorie is not always a calorie. And if we just look at calories, in the context that we're just talking about units of measurement, there's no denying a calorie is a calorie. So you have to understand that we don't just eat calories. We don't just open up a bag every day and grab a bunch of calories. We don't do that, okay? We eat food, and food yields a certain amount of calories. And all these things between calories, they're just ideas. They're generalizations. First of all, the majority of food labels out there are not accurate. You can just take a simple calculator and add up the macronutrients in the back, and guess what? You're gonna be off by a little bit. Now that's a small picture, but there's even something different that people don't talk about. The amount of energy it costs you to burn the food. So if you had some steak, if you had 100 calories worth of steak, and you had to chew that 30 times, you're expending energy not only to digest it, but then to assimilate all those nutrients. So there's a certain amount of calories that have already been burned trying to digest and assimilate that food than what that food cost. Now what that is, can that be measured? Yes, it can be. And what do you think would cost your body more calories? Eating a nutrient-dense steak or eating cotton candy? You can eat a lot of cotton candy, right? And get to a certain amount of calories, but you could put cotton candy on your tongue and it just dissolves. It doesn't cost your body much to burn that type of food. So now this is why I bring this back to just looking at it from a big picture standpoint. We also have things like food sensitivities. A lot of people have food sensitivities when it comes to wheat, when it comes to dairy, corn, soy, gluten, and sugar. These are all common food sensitivities. And how those foods affect your body, we don't know. For me, if I eat wheat, my belly just expands, okay? I get a distended gut and my lower back starts to hurt. I don't care what the calories are. I don't care what the macronutrients are. I know that if I personally eat wheat, I feel like shit. As a general rule of thumb, try to shop the outskirts of the store. Focus on eating high quality animal proteins and eat veggies as much as you want. As a general rule of thumb, that's a great place to start. When it comes to carbohydrates, have them around your workout window if it makes you feel good. If carbs are making you feel really tired, they're making you feel really sleepy, or they're just making you feel bloated, lower the amount. If even a very little amount is still doing that, just eliminate them. Increase your amount of veggies and you'll feel a lot better. But once again, everyone is different. Everyone is unique. And what works for you may not work for someone else, as I had said before. That's what I have to say about that topic. I know it's a very controversial topic, and I'm pretty sure the comment section will explode, which I'm hoping. But if you have questions, post them in the comments below, and hopefully we can have a very civil debate, or I can answer some of your questions. Until then, I will see you guys next week.